Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Ryan Buchanan. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, Adi?
Good. So you're a recurring guest. Our first episode, we talked about systematizing a business. And now we're going to talk about, and we also talked about it then because that's who you are. But today we're going to talk more about purpose and serving the community. But I do think that you got to this point that you are able to do that because you definitely ran a very good business that was very well systematized. So it's all ties together. So Ryan, I'm going to introduce your bio and have you also add to it. But first, I want to give a big shout out to our mutual friend, Alice Tang, because she's the one who introduced us to begin with. So thank you, Alice. Alice has been on my podcast. I've been on hers twice. We're going to include that in the show notes as well, so our listeners can listen to it. And that Alice is such a connector, and I am very grateful for all the connections that she has made, and specifically meeting you, which is great. So thank you, Alice.
Yeah. So happy to kind of tee up the topic, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, but let's tell the listeners who you are. So you are the founder and chairman of Thesis, which is a data-driven digital marketing agency. And we're going to include the link to the episode we did where we talked about Thesis, how you started it and how you were able to scale it and all of that. But if you want to add anything, you can definitely do that. But now tell the listeners about the life after when you are not the active CEO of Thesis. What do you do?
Yeah, I think a lot of my saying my life's work makes me sound really old, but a lot of my philosophy is this kind of proving that the virtuous cycle of giving back to the community while I was running Thesis, and being on boards and things like that, and meeting other executives that could help become new clients of mine and help my business thrive. And then my company would give back to the community, and that whole virtuous cycle really set the framework for kind of the second chapter of my life, where I am not in any current meetings at Thesis, but I serve as a sounding board to my business partner, Keely York, who is CEO and has been running the company for the last 4 or 5 years. I work out of the office, but mainly to do the community things that I'll mention now, which there's 3 nonprofits that I've co-founded over the past decade. One of which is The Script, where it started as an internship program for underrepresented college interns, and we've placed over the past 10 years about 900, primarily college students of color, but underrepresented college students at 150 Portland companies. And we are pivoting that. We have a lot of headwinds around, current administration. There's a lot of words you can't mention in the DEI space, but even bigger than that is that AI has really substituted a lot of the efficiencies that you can have for entry level employees. And so to be an college intern program only is never the vision that we had. We always had a vision of walking alongside underrepresented professionals from college to CEO. And so about 2.5 years ago, I started a program called Blueprint Founders Circle, where it's similar, Adi. I know you're in EO, so we built it on that kind of model, which is we get together monthly, and it's all around building generational wealth for underrepresented entrepreneurs and founders. And so we have guest speakers come in each month, whether it's on estate planning or real estate or brand, like different elements of building value in their companies, as well as building wealth through other vehicles like real estate, passive income there. That has been so tangible and rewarding. And so that is now part of the script. And it's kind of fun to see how we've pivoted that this year. The other thing that I started 3 years ago, and this is kind of more in the very much the entrepreneurial path of COVID was happening in 21, 22. I was part of the problem of I'd go to cocktail parties or networking events, things like that. And there's just so much complaint in Portland in particular. We just had a lot of policies and um, a lot of things that led towards open drug use in the streets, a lot of homelessness, a public safety issue, things like that. And I I found myself complaining and not doing something about it. And so I finally, my company had partnered with a nonprofit called Adopt One Block, and it was like a trash cleanup type of situation. And it was like a big bonding moment for our dozen employees that would volunteer. And I thought, hey, why don't we do this on, I'll try and get several dozen other companies to get involved, and we can have like a citywide cleanup. And I was thinking maybe like 50 people would show up in the first year. So this was 3 years ago. Over 500 people showed up. This Friday, we do it twice a year. This Friday, we'll have about 2,000 people show up where the Portland Timbers play their soccer games and the Portland Thorns at Providence Park. And so it's just been this like big source of pride, like a reason to have pride in the city again. And so people wear their We Believe in Portland t-shirts, and like we support local restaurants at lunch after, and the either the mayor or the chief of police kind of kicks us all off. And so that's been a very surprising thing that just kind of took off. And my personal brand is like, oh, you're now Mr. Portland guy. I was like, well, it never was intended to be like that, but I guess so. And
So
then
Ryan, how did it happen? I remember our last conversation. It's almost the same, a similar incident of what happened with Thesis. So with you started an agency and grew. So you started here with 12 people cleaning, and it became 2,000. How did you do that?
yeah, I think the timing of it would kind of, it struck a nerve to where people wanted to get involved. I mean, honestly, I'm not a creative myself. And I really, I started a website. I then, a lot of it took off through LinkedIn. So I would post videos highlighting other leaders in the community and why they're leaning into Portland when so many people were kind of fleeing. Um, and so I
So who
just
will
feel
be the
like
leaders in the community? Like from where? Like private sector, public?
other
Other
founders, just
founders.
getting their
Okay.
perspective on what they loved about Portland and why they were leaning in. And just trying to shift the narrative from just constant negativity to like, hey, we have a lot of amazing assets and beautiful natural resources and all of the things that we have in Portland and within a half hour drive that is, unrivaled. And that now my videos kind of try to focus on holding two things at once: the challenge and the opportunity or the exciting thing about Portland, because I found that a lot of my more skeptical business executives were I've been accused of being annoyingly optimistic, and so they were kind of tuning out like, oh, Ryan's just he's not, rooted in reality here. So like I'm trying to hold two things at once, two opposing things. And so that it makes for better videos too. So that's just been encouraging. And then the most recent thing that I co-founded less than, I guess, about 8 months ago is with a friend of mine, Lance Orton, who runs an addiction recovery and homeless services nonprofit called City Team Portland. And we, based on kind of what I've learned from We Believe in Portland of having this great volunteer experience, it's to give volunteers proximity to go around in a kind of a tougher part of downtown Portland called Old Town and have resource bags with like, water and granola bars and toiletries, as well as shelter vouchers, and get to know people's names on the street, have a humanizing conversation, and then maybe that leads towards them, going to the shelter and potentially enrolling in a 6 to 8 month like addiction recovery kind of rehab program, get a job, all of that stuff. And that's all kind of built into how City Team operates. And that's been wildly fulfilling because it's like not always the most comfortable thing conversation to get into. But it's like, man, people, it's meeting them where they are, and sometimes there's like a spark of hope where they come in and they, drastically change their life trajectory, and that's super rewarding. So I feel like, yeah, Portland, there's so many ways to have such a deep purpose here. And a lot of my network is through other entrepreneurs, a lot of other business executives here who don't always want to get into that uncomfortable of a situation in the community. But the ones who do participate are deeply kind of changed by the experience.
Yeah, what effect does it have that you have seen on other entrepreneurs, other peers when they actually get involved like that? What have you noticed?
So it's really different between We Believe in Portland, which is more of this like it's more of a team bonding thing, and it's more yeah, somehow every we do it twice a year, and it's always sunny on that day, and it's just like, people are thanking you for picking up trash in the city, and it's like this very it's just a very fun experience that is that's more of I'm trying not to say surface, but it serves a really good purpose, and it's every 6 months, so it's like not as often as the other thing. But the folks who get engaged in We All Have a Name, that it's more it is more deeply changing. And the thing that's been surprising is, as an entrepreneur, I really have this competitive nature to want to get like a lot of people to volunteer, and numbers are important and all of that stuff. And I found with We All Have a Name, we have about a dozen people who show up every single week, and it's twice a week that we do it. And so the size is much smaller, but we've created a more intimate, like vulnerable, deeply sharing background. And then we go out in the streets, and we have guys from the program who used to be homeless like 1 or 2 months prior, and are on their road to recovery. They are our leaders when we go out. So getting to know their stories, and then getting to know other stories on the street. The folks who keep coming back and show up are like they're deeply committed to seeing Portland come around, and are changed by the experience of like, wow, we are all human under it all, and like there's not that much different. We're just one bad thing away from happening, where if we didn't have a safety net, like we could be there. So yeah, it's a different kind of change of heart posture between the nonprofits that I'm involved in.
That's beautiful. What's the plan for the future? What do you still want to accomplish here in Portland?
Well, I my goal is not a couple parts of that question, especially because you focus on system stuff. I've been really fortunate with each of these three nonprofit initiatives that I've co-founded where I am more of the leveraging my platform and giving other people a voice. And I am not involved in the operations of all the detail logistics of everything. I do have weekly or monthly meetings with each of the nonprofits to run strategy and leverage my network for other people who can contribute or sponsor or this or that. But I have the freedom to, you know, go, take a vacation with my family, whenever I want to and things like that. So it's a lot of people have the misperception of like, man, you seem like you must just work nonstop of community stuff. And it's like, actually, I have a lot of freedom because I have these really great partners who do all the operations. Um,
And Ryan, this is
so
really yours. I mean, just to that point, before I know you're going to answer me in terms of the
yeah.
future, but I think that is a very important point to inspire other entrepreneurs that are listening to us, because I'm sure that there are and our listeners, they go, well, I would love to contribute more to my community. I would love to do more. I would love to be more, doing more activities like that, but it's probably not possible. But you showed how it's possible, how it is possible to be successful as an entrepreneur and elevate yourself out of the day to day by
Mhm.
having great people under you and systems. But you are also taking that and doing the same. That's what is allowing you to expand on the social responsibility stuff.
Yeah, I think, yeah, some people who didn't really know how I structured some things are just like, man, yet another nonprofit and all that. I'm like, no, these are existing 501(c)(3s. I'm not adding more competition for donation dollars or anything like that. I'm literally just creating another initiative within an existing nonprofit because it doesn't exist currently, and I'm way too impatient for government to solve the problem. So I'm just gonna jump in and do it, but I'm gonna do it with a partner. So that seems to have worked really well, mainly because the people and leaders behind my partners are really, really good at what they do, and they have great follow through, and it's not just talk about it and not do it. So that I feel super blessed on that front. But your question
For
about
the future.
future, I mean, at some point I need to start saying no to more initiatives. Uh, I have a
Well, why?
strong.
Why would you say no to more initiatives?
Well, each initiative, I do have a perspective of like, if I'm going to commit to something, I'm committing for the long term. So it is more hours, of work. But I guess I would say I have a really clear conviction about how Portland solves its systems issues in terms of there's a clear priority of things to be solved for that I am working on tangible things to bring them back. Number one, public safety slash homelessness, like a lot of citizens polls in the Business Journal and a lot of different organizations. It seems like there's a massive alignment where people vote that this is the number one issue. The I think we all have an aim is clearly addressing that. I think that there's a ballot measure that is going to come onto play in the next few months, where we, for no additional new taxes, it'll be hiring 400 additional police officers to do community policing just to get us to the bare minimum of where almost every other city's at. That is really key because we need to have both a humanity and compassion as well as accountability at the same time. Again, holding these two things at once is critical. The second thing is tax reform. We have basically almost the same level of taxes as Manhattan. It's one of the worst in the country, and yet our services are not there. So there are a couple things that are very doable in terms of preschool for all and the homeless tax that we could put a moratorium on for quite a while. And those programs have plenty of money to spend. Like they have something like 600 million or more that is just like not being put to use. So that is, we need to be a magnet that attracts founders and entrepreneurs and have wealth stay here because that is the revenue engine for how all these community services get funded. So that's number two. And then number three is around, entrepreneurship is our future and, innovation and economic development around that. And so those three things, the first two things are just like back to basics, what every city needs to do to function well. And the third thing is more about innovation and real stimulus. And I think Portland has a really cooperative founder community that supports one another. I think we just need, from a policy perspective, to support that more and more.
I agree. I completely agree with everything you just said because that will create a great prosperous city. And even if our listeners here are not from Portland, this is something that can be replicated in any city. And it's going back to the basics, not penalizing those that produce, let them produce and let them contribute, but in a way that is meaningful to them as well, and get people together as a group, which I think is very, very important. And that's what you're doing. You're basically getting the able people, the productive people to help and increase their productivity so the city will flourish, as you said.
Yeah. That's all I got. Any other questions?
I think it's beautiful, and I think it's very, very inspiring. We're almost done with the podcast, but I'm curious about, do you feel that being a successful entrepreneur really equipped you to run the nonprofit run in the nonprofit world or the nonprofits that you run in a different way? Do you look at it more like an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. I think a couple things reinforced what helped make each of the nonprofit initiatives successful. One, and probably by far the greatest, is that I spent 25 years building a network of um, not just, friends, but like relationships that have real substance to them, so that people will use their platforms to get their employees to show up to We Believe in Portland, or to participate in the script program to hire interns, or to hire full-time employees right out of college. Um, the second piece is, you hit obstacles, you hit headwinds in the nonprofit space, and you learn how to pivot and you learn how to have perseverance from the for-profit piece where there's real consequences of, if you don't land other clients and have cash flow issues, like your business dies. Like, cash is the lifeblood of any organization, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. And so the principles are almost identical. It's just the structures of the organizations are slightly different. But yeah, I don't know if I think in each one of the three nonprofits who I partnered with have the top leader who is entrepreneurial in nature and is willing to do something slightly out of the norm in terms of a new initiative and lean into that. Because if I just dealt with a leader of a nonprofit who was like, oh, we've done it this way, all the time, and we have to, have this kind of compliance to the old ways of doing it, then it would have never worked. So yeah, I definitely think that it has helped in the nonprofit space.
That's fantastic. Ryan, if our listeners would like to get a hold of you, ask you questions, participate in the programs, or just get inspired, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, my email is just ryan@thesis.agency. So I'm in my email all the time. So if they want to reach out, that'd be fantastic.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast and sharing your story and encouraging and inspiring other entrepreneurs in how to contribute back. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.